Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm Dr. Neffinger. I'm going to get started. Would someone just mind typing into the chat, letting me know that they can hear me and that they can see my video and PowerPoint? Great, thank you. So how I'm going to run this session is a little bit more of a Q&A. I know that if any of you attended my last lecture, it was acne, and I kind of just talked about everything involving acne, but this one I'm going to do more of a Q&A. So I'll get started with a little introduction. Like I said, my name is Dr. Neffinger. I'm a naturopathic doctor at Bloom Natural Health in West Hartford, Connecticut. Please feel free to check out our website if you'd like to read more about naturopathic medicine and what we can offer to you. But in the meantime, one of my specialties is ticks and the treatment of tick-borne disease. So I worked for 3 years in undergrad and for a year after at the Laboratory of Medical Zoology at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and some of the best tick scientists in the world worked at that lab. So I had great teachers and basically was exposed to many different species of ticks and learned so much about the diseases they carry, how to prevent them, and just pretty much everything about ticks. So I'm going to open it up to questions right now. Please type all of your questions into the chat, and that way I can answer them. If I don't see questions coming in, I'll just start talking, but I'll give everyone a few minutes to type some questions. So somebody asked, is there a natural way to keep ticks off of me? That is a great question. I'm assuming that you're asking about a natural way because usually the most common ingredient used to prevent ticks is something called permethrin, which is an insecticide. Has a very strong scent. It's a strong chemical. It's not something you really want to apply to your skin. You apply it mostly to your shoes or clothing. Some clothing comes pre-treated with it. There are natural sprays that you can buy online, or like sometimes outdoor stores carry them, that are essential oil sprays that ticks don't like. In my experience, they've been effective for me. I've heard plenty of other people say that they work for them too. I haven't seen any really strong research showing that ticks aren't biting because of the essential oils. But for example, if you go on Amazon, you read the reviews of those essential oil sprays, a lot of people really love them. And for myself, they've been very effective. I usually just kind of spray them on my boots and on my pants when I go hiking or something. And it's a lot more safe for your skin than something like permethrin, which I had talked about earlier. And then there's plenty of other ways to keep ticks off of you too when you're outdoors. So for example, you want to make sure you're wearing light colored clothing so you can easily identify any ticks that are crawling on you. Ticks typically will crawl upwards on your body. They don't live in trees. They don't fall on you, they don't jump on you, they are on the ground, and they either crawl up onto you or onto vegetation, like tall blades of grass, and then they'll latch onto your clothing or onto your skin. This person's asking, what were the name of those products? So I don't have any specific, there's tons of different tick products. I think Mother Tick is the one that I use at home. You can find it on Amazon, but there's plenty of different essential oil based tick products that you can buy. And sorry, so I was saying you can tuck your pants into your socks when you're hiking, and you can tuck your shirt into your pants. So that way, if the tick crawls up, it doesn't really have a way to get onto your skin. It's just staying on your clothing. And that gives you more of a chance to see a tick on you while you are hiking. Another good way to keep ticks off of you is to stay on the paths when you're hiking. You know, don't go off into the woods, because the more vegetation there is, the more likelihood that a tick will be there waiting to attach to you. And also make sure you're treating your animals regularly with any sort of tick prevention products. You want to make sure there's no gap in treatment, because ticks are active pretty much all year long, as the temperature is above freezing. Just make sure that you're checking yourself and your pets regularly after you come back from something like a hike where you are more likely to be exposed to a tick. It's good to just check yourself completely. And I would also check myself 24 hours later, check your pets. And ticks are really not very resilient to dry environments. They need a lot of humidity. So when you get home, it's a good idea to throw all of your clothes in the dryer for like 5 to 10 minutes, but 20 minutes is best to be completely safe. And that will kill the ticks. And then you can wash them after that, after the dry. Any more questions right now? So a question is, how long can a tick survive indoors? That's a great question. It really depends on the species of tick. Most ticks are not able to survive indoors for very long, about 24 hours. Like I said, they don't survive very well in dry environments. Most homes are pretty dry for a tick. So the three main ticks that are most active in the Northeast are the black-legged, or also called the deer tick, American dog tick, or Lone Star tick. And those three ticks do not survive very well indoors. They'll survive for about 24 hours. So if you see one of those ticks crawling indoors, not a huge risk to you, but good idea to still have it identified by someone. We offer that service here in our office. The only tick that would possibly survive indoors, that can actually survive for quite a while, is the brown dog tick. It's not very active here in the Northeast. It's more active in the Midwest area of the country. And I'll talk a little bit about the different species of ticks in a few minutes. Meg asks, what percentage of ticks carry Lyme? So it really depends where in the country you are and what stage of tick it is. So let me actually go into a little bit of background on the different species of ticks. I just prepared some slides here. So this right here is the black-legged tick, also called a deer tick. This is the most feared tick in this area. This is the only black-legged ticks. There's a few different species, but these are the only ones that are going to be carrying the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. These are the ticks that people are most worried about. Basically, there's 3 life stages. You can see the larva, the nymph, the adult male, and the adult female. So there's some scientific debate about it, but to generalize, the larva does not pose any sort of risk, because it is the first life stage of the tick. It hasn't had a chance to have to take blood from some animal or person, And that means that because it hasn't had a blood meal, it hasn't had the chance to pick up the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. So those don't really cause a risk. The nymphs and the adults are the ones to be more concerned about. And to generalize, in the Connecticut, New England area, the adults, typically about 30 to 50% of them are infected or carry the pathogen, the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll transmit that to you, but that's about how many of them carry Lyme. And then the other species of ticks, I'll just bring them up real quick. The dog tick and the lone star ticks, those aren't going to be carrying the pathogen or the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. Patrick asks, when gardening, will ticks be found in soil? That's a good question. It really depends where you are gardening. If you have like a vegetable garden, if you have shrubbery that's well maintained, it's not overgrown, much less likely that ticks will be hiding in that area. If you have like a grassy yard that's in someplace like West Hartford, it's not anywhere, it's more urban, less likely to be near the woods, less likelihood of ticks in your yard. If you're near woods, anywhere that there's going to be deer nearby, or a lot of mice running around, or if you have a lot of overgrown shrubs, more likely for ticks to be there. I hope that answers the question there. Yael asked, how long does a tick live? How many offspring does it have? The tick life cycles pretty much cycle throughout the year. For example, adult deer tick can be active for like October to May. It really depends on the stage and the circumstances that it's in. So outdoors, it can really depend is the answer, but how many offsprings? A female adult deer tick can lay hundreds of eggs, I believe, per tick, yeah. Next question, what other diseases do ticks carry and how common are these in Connecticut? So it depends on the tick. So let's go through the three most common ticks that we're talking about here for New England. So the deer tick that we're looking at right now, that can transmit something called Lyme disease. It can transmit something called babesiosis, anaplasmosis, or Powassan virus. Basically, the Lyme disease is the most commonly transmitted disease for deer ticks, but one of the reasons that that is thought to be is because only until like the last 5 to 10 years have scientists and doctors really been realizing that those other diseases are also being carried. So they actually kind of display themselves very similarly to Lyme. So basically the answer is we don't know exactly how common these are in Connecticut. I would have to look into the exact statistics for the most recent testing, but it's definitely not nearly as common as Lyme. And just while we're talking about it, so that's the deer tick diseases that are carried. The American dog tick, which is actually probably the most common tick for you to find right now in the summer, transmits two types of diseases. One is Rocky Mountain spotted fever and tularemia. And this other one, lone star tick, also can transmit tularemia, ehrlichiosis, and something called tick-associated rash illness, also called STARI. So again, deer tick is the only one that's going to be transmitting Lyme disease. Someone said, besides a bullseye rash, what would be another first sign of Lyme disease? So something to keep in mind when you are getting bitten by a tick, or if you find a tick, or even if you don't find a tick, because you might not always see the tick that's transmitting disease to you. The most common symptom that people know is called the bullseye rash. I think I have a picture of it. Yes, so you can see that in the far left corner of this slide here. It's called a bullseye or target rash. It doesn't appear in all people who are bitten by ticks. Definitely good to check your entire body, make sure that you don't have this rash, and tell your doctor if you do after being bitten by a tick. Just something good to check yourself for if you're checking for ticks regularly anyway. But also fever-like symptoms, so chills, flu-like symptoms like chills, fever, headache, muscle and joint pain. You might find that your lymph nodes are a little inflamed, so you can check your lymph nodes all along your body. It might feel like something like a pea, it might hurt. And then sometimes stage 2 Lyme can appear as a rash about 1 to 6 months after infection if you're not treated initially. And some people feel like later stage Lyme can have things like neurological symptoms, but definitely the things to keep in mind are the flu-like symptoms and the rash. So Jamie says, what are the symptoms of Lyme disease? So basically just covered that, but yeah, you're going to be seeing that rash, you're going to be feeling those flu-like symptoms in the first 3 to 30 days. And then if you're not treated, you can be feeling a lot of long-term effects like fatigue, joint pain, neurological symptoms. So if you're feeling those things, it might be worth asking your doctor to run a test for tick-borne disease. Someone asked, do ticks burrow under the skin? No, they don't. Only the mouth pieces of a tick will go underneath the skin. So let me go back to the picture of these ticks here. So if you can see on the adults, the very top of the body is 2 little, almost pincer looking type things. Those are the mouth parts. That is the only part that goes underneath the skin. And that allows the tick to transmit its saliva into your body and also to drink any blood from your body. Next question is, how long does the tick need to be in you in order to contract an illness from them? That's a very good question and something that has a lot of debate in the scientific community. I have seen a lot of good research that shows that a tick that's been feeding for less than 24 hours has not had a chance to transmit the bacteria that causes Lyme. Now that is specific to Lyme disease. Other pathogens that can cause disease could be transmitted more quickly. For example, deer ticks can transmit something called Powassan encephalitis. It's very rare, but that actually only requires a few hours to be transmitted. So I guess while I'm waiting for more questions, I will switch to this page here again and talk a little bit more about what you might want to look for if you were bitten by a tick. So again, I talked at length about the target lesion or the bullseye rash that you might be seeing on your body, but for starry, which is transmitted by Lone Star ticks, you might see, like at the site of a tick bite, a red rash. It might have a central clearing, meaning no rash in the middle. And then for Rocky Mountain spotted fever, it's usually something that's a little bit more some smaller red bumps or a smaller red rash, and then a few days later it will turn into a very typical purplish rash, which you can see here on the picture. And then for tularemia, transmitted by the dog ticks, it's more of an ulcer. It's actually very likely to be transmitted by little flies as well. Okay. Next question is, has the Asian tick been found in Connecticut? What risk do they present? Actually, I am not completely up to date with the spread of the Asian tick. I know it's been found in the United States, and actually most people don't even know that it's the Asian tick. It can easily be misidentified. So more and more people are sending in that they find them in Connecticut, or sorry, in the United States. I'm not sure about the exact specifics about how many have been found in Connecticut. They don't spread Lyme disease as far as I'm aware. I'm not exactly sure about the others. Okay, while I'm waiting for more questions, I can talk about yard applications. So one way to possibly prevent ticks in your yard is by treating your yard in May and June are the best times to treat. Usually the perimeter of the yard is where you're interested in treating. I'm not exactly sure which insecticides they use. I think permethrin, the one that I had talked about spraying on your body, is one. Yeah, some people really feel more comfortable treating their yard. Some people feel like it's unnecessary. Like I said, if you live closer to the forest or woods, more likely to have ticks in your yard. I can also talk about any myths of ticks, which is kind of fun to talk about. So a lot of people ask if ticks can fall on you while you're hiking. No, they don't fall out of trees. They will always crawl upwards. Usually the deer ticks and the dog ticks will be waiting on a long blade of grass or a bush or something, and will kind of have their front legs out waiting to grasp onto something that brushes by them. Also, another common question is if you go out and buy a Christmas tree around Christmas time, could there be ticks in there? The answer is no, very unlikely. A lot of times little bugs that you find in Christmas trees are aphids, commonly mistaken as ticks by people who aren't familiar with how to identify ticks. There's actually a lot of insects that can be mistaken for ticks, like beetles, lice, bed bugs, stink bugs. So if you find something crawling on you and you're not sure what it is, the best thing you can do is find a piece of duct tape and just grab the tick, save it in a little plastic bag or jar, and I'm able to identify it if you bring it into the office. It's very easy and quick to do. Someone asked, how often should you reapply the permethrin around the perimeter of the yard? As far as I know, I believe it's recommended to apply twice a year, once in May and once in June. Yeah. And I think that's pretty effective for the most common tick season, most common tick bite season. Another misconception about Lyme disease and ticks is that deers carry Lyme disease. That's not true. They basically serve as hosts for the ticks. So when an adult female needs to lay eggs, it will find a large mammal to feed on, so that it can get blood for the energy to lay its eggs. So usually it will attach to a larger mammal like a deer. And the deers do not serve as a reservoir for the tick bacteria, for the Lyme disease bacteria. So, for example, if a deer was to be infected by a tick that was carrying Lyme, another tick would not be able to attach to that deer and then pick it up. Actually, the most common reservoirs for Lyme disease are mice and rodents. The most common ticks to look for in the summer are, I'll scroll through here, the Lone Star tick nymphs, there at the bottom left. And then the American dog tick adults, males and females. I have so many friends who send me pictures of ticks that they find on themselves around this time of year, and say, what is this tick? And should I go to the doctor? And usually it's a dog tick. Very, very small likelihood. Well, actually no likelihood of carrying Lyme disease, but a much smaller likelihood than deer ticks to carry Lyme, that they do the Rocky Mountain spotted fever and tularemia. It's much smaller than that 50% rate. But again, dog ticks do not carry Lyme disease. And then also the black-legged deer nymphs are common around this time of year. They're in the bottom left corner. They are about, in person, they're about the size of a poppy seed if they haven't been feeding. So for reference, the nymphs are the size of a poppy seed, and the adults are about the size of a sesame seed if they haven't taken a blood meal yet. If they've taken a blood meal, they can reach almost the size of a dime. So they can be very large. Any other questions, anyone? Someone asked, where do you get permethrin? I believe you can buy it at most outdoor type stores like REI, and you can probably order it online too. I think Home Depot will probably even sell it somewhere like that. It's pretty common. I know that, for example, like a spider spray to kill spiders in your house would also have permethrin in it. So pretty much most places, even Walmart might even carry it. Someone asked, so if I heard you correctly, the deer tick is the one we should be most worried about if we find it embedded in us. Yes, that is correct. In terms of Lyme disease, it's the only tick to be worried about. But yes, it's the most likely to transmit to you a disease that would cause long-lasting symptoms and disease. So yes, the deer ticks, and you can see them on this slide. Usually the males, if they are crawling on you, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to attach to you for very long. They're usually just looking for a female to reproduce with. It's the females typically that you'll find attached to you. At the practice here at Bloom Natural Health, so some of the things you can do if you find a tick on you, we do offer a tick identification service, and that would just entail me looking at the tick, identifying it. I'll identify the species and life stage, and I'll also just be able to give you a general estimate of how long it's been feeding on you. So by identifying the species and life stage, I'm able to tell you what diseases it could possibly transfer to you. And then by looking at the feeding stage, for example, if it's been feeding for less than 24 hours, your risk is very low. If it's been feeding for longer than that, then it's probably a good idea to either have the tick tested or see a doctor to get some sort of antibiotic prescription, or we can also treat naturopathically to try to mitigate any of the symptoms or disease that might have been transmitted. Someone asked, what is the best way to remove a tick from your skin? Great question. So if you find a tick on you, it's probably going to be embedded. If you find a tick crawling on you, very easy to take it off. Just get a piece of tape, or you can sometimes catch it on your fingers. Good idea to save it in a bag, just to monitor yourself for any rash or anything. And like I said, get it checked. If you find the tick embedded in you, it can be very difficult to remove. The best thing you can do is take some rubbing alcohol, sanitize the area that the tick is attached to, and then you can take a pair of pointy tipped tweezers and remove the tick. A lot of people are worried if there is a little bit of the mouth part still in your skin. Really nothing to worry about. It's not going to continue to transmit the bacteria to you. Your body will probably just push it out naturally. You can just remove it using the pointy tipped tweezers. And again, after you remove it, sanitize the area again with rubbing alcohol, save it in a bag, and monitor yourself for the rash and any symptoms. Have the tick identified and possibly tested if your doctor recommends. So ticks can pretty much be active any time of year, all year round. If the temperatures are above freezing, then a deer tick can still be active even if there's snow on the ground. So just something to keep in mind. Some people go hiking in the wintertime and they don't think they're at risk, but actually, yes, you could still get a tick on you in the winter. It's good to check yourself all year long. Deer tick adults, which pose the highest risk of transmitting Lyme disease, like I said earlier, are most active from October to May. So we're kind of nearing the end of May, we're kind of coming to a less dangerous time of year, but again, most active around October to May. And then the nymphs, which can also transfer Lyme, are more active around late spring, early summer. For dog ticks, I'll click through here. Dog ticks, the adults are more likely to be active April to August, and the larvae and nymph stages of the dog ticks very rarely bite people or pets, so not something so to be worried about so much, more worried about the adult stage of the dog ticks. And the Lone Star ticks, the adults and nymphs are more active around April to August. Please feel free to send more questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to identify a tick. So I'll focus on the adult deer ticks here. So the adult deer ticks are going to be about the size of a sesame seed. Like I said earlier, the males have this more brown body. It's pretty much uniformly brown throughout, and it has a little bit of that ridge on the edge here. It's a little bit lighter brown. The mouth parts are a little bit shorter. All of the adults have 8 legs. And the females are usually a bright reddish orange color. It's pretty distinctive if you're able to look at it. They have those longer mouth parts for feeding. They have this brown part here within the orange is called the scutum. Sorry. And that does not change in size as the tick feeds. So it's a very good way for scientists to be able to look at it and say, oh, the tick has fed 24 hours or it's fed 36 hours based on how much the body has expanded around that brown part called the scutum. Next question is, do ticks prefer large dogs and cats rather than small ones? The answer is it depends on the stage of the tick. So the larvae and the nymph stages will be fine on smaller mammals like mice, but the adults will always prefer a large mammal. In terms of a small dog, I don't know where the line falls. There's been research where they'll put adults in with like a cage with a small mammal, and they would rather die than attach because it's not really a very good host for them. They are always going to look out for a large mammal like a deer or a human or a large dog or cat. So I guess, yes, they probably do prefer large dogs and cats rather than small ones. I'll talk a little bit more about identification, and then if there's no more questions, we can end up. So please send questions if you have any. The adult males here and the adult females of the dog ticks, these are really the biggest ticks of the ones that we are going to find on ourselves here in the Northeast. So the dog ticks have a very cool marbling on their bodies. If you can see, the male has it throughout the whole body and the female has it just in that scutum area. So it's a very distinctive brown and white pattern. They have kind of shorter mouthpieces. Their legs are a little bit beefier, and they're a little bit harder in texture. And then the Lone Star ticks, they're very typically that sort of like non-opaque orange color. They're like a light brownish orange. You can see that the females have that white spot on their backs. That is the most distinctive quality of a Lone Star tick. The Asian tick that we had mentioned earlier looks pretty similar to the Lone Star ticks, if I'm not mistaken. Someone said, what do you think of the common treats against ticks for animals? Can they be harmful to people? Oh, the treatments against ticks, yes. So you'd never want to use a treatment that's been developed for an animal on a person. They're very different. I believe there's a dog vaccine. There isn't an approved vaccine against Lyme disease for humans as of right now. I know that there used to be and they recalled it. And then right now, I think they're in early stages for another vaccine. So a lot of dogs and cats use topical treatments that are very effective. So it can be like a back of the neck spot treatment. And they can vary in terms of how powerful they are. You know, some of them are less powerful, some are much more powerful if an animal is picking up a lot of ticks. But yes, you never want to use those on people. But in terms of, are they harmful to people? If you were to like rub it or something, probably not. Good idea to wash your hands, and not eat it or something, but not really harmful to people. They can be harmful to animals if they're used incorrectly. They can often cause neurological problems or seizures, so always make sure you're using them as recommended and only as often as they're recommended. All right, any other questions? Oh, someone asked a question. I found ticks in my hair even after my husband checks it in showering. I've heard ticks hate vinegar. Should I rinse my hair with vinegar before the shower, after hike, gardening, etc.? Do ticks hate vinegar? I'm not sure about vinegar specifically. Really, the best thing that you can do is to check yourself. Well, the best thing you can do is prevent before you get a tick. So make sure that you are staying on the paths, wearing those clothing, light colored clothing, things like that. Check yourself when you get home, throw your clothes in the dryer. You can ask somebody else to check your scalp because some ticks are so tiny. And then also check within the next 24 hours, do another check in case a tick has been feeding. It's much more easy to find it. Yes, checking is the best thing you can do. I'm sorry, I can't answer specifically about the vinegar. The yard spray that a company like Mosquito Joe's uses for ticks and mosquito prevention, how is it potentially harmful to people? Pesticides, if a company is spraying your yard, then I'm sure it's been approved by some sort of company. Does that mean that it's not harmful to you? It depends. I don't know about the research behind different sprays. I know that permethrin is something that you don't really want directly sprayed to you, but I believe after your yard's been sprayed, it doesn't stay on there for very long. So you should be fine after rainfall to go out and play in your yards, but something to ask the people who are spraying. I can't say exactly. All right, last call for questions. Give it a few more seconds. Okay, so once again, my name is Dr. Neffinger. I'm here with Bloom Natural Health, and I am available. We are available here for any ticks you might find on your body or your pets or anywhere in your home. Just save it in a plastic baggie. We can identify it, and we can always proceed with a doctor's visit too. So all of our information is listed here. bloomnaturaldoctors.com is our website. Thank you all for coming.